So I have a question for you. Do you all know who Debbie Downer is? You know who she is? Debbie Downer is Rachel Dratcher, I believe is her name, and she appeared on Saturday Night Live. And Saturday Night Live premiered on October 11th, 1975. And so as I'm thinking about this homily, Debbie Downer came to my mind when I was reading the book of Job. So I went to YouTube to look at one of the episodes. And so one is about a wedding reception, a very celebratory time. And at table 9, all the chairs are taken except for one. Who shows up? Debbie Downer. But she's wearing a gas mask. And she sits down and she tries to shove a roll in her mouth, but the guy says, I think you need to take your mask off. And she goes, oh, this is because of COVID-19. And, you know, my cat's dying from feline AIDS. And she goes on. So they try to shake her from their table, obviously, because she's just a damper. She goes, why don't you go greet the newlyweds? Oh, she goes, oh, I'll give them my gift. She goes over and she gives them the card. They open the card. It's a donation to the Feline Society for feline AIDS. So you can see that came to mind for me when I was reading the book of Job. Now, Job had it very good, actually. He was very wealthy. He had a lot of livestock, a lot of land, kind of like I think many of us in this community who have horses and cows and pastures can kind of relate to that, right? So he had it pretty good. And so Satan decided to make a deal with God that he could break Job. You know, we can break his faith. So God said, okay, do to him whatever you want, but do not harm him. So he takes his livestock, he takes his children. Of course, Job is having a bad day. Huh? It's almost okay for him to be Debbie Downer with what he's going through, all these hardships. He's restless at night, he can't sleep, he's tossing and turning, as we heard in the first reading. He's troubled. Am I just a hireling? Is this what life is all about? My life is passing like the wind. It's just really dark, isn't it? And then we hear what? The responsorial psalm, which is, praise the Lord, all the brokenhearted. Okay? So the point of this message for us today, brothers and sisters, no matter what you're going through in your life, no matter what hardship you're going through, family strife, illness, financial difficulties, spiritual dryness, whatever it is, God is with you. God is with you. God allows these moments in our lives so that we don't become too self-reliant and we think that we are the ones in control. Is that because God is a power freak? No. He wants us to know that He is there for us, especially in the most difficult moments. I know we've all had tough times. I've had tough times. And the trick is to persevere in prayer, knowing that God is going to take care of us. We can have our impression or our hopes of how we want something to happen, but really we should be rather praying for God's will. Because God knows what is better for ourselves than we do. So we have to keep that in mind. And then we get to the gospel. And there's Simon Peter's mother-in-law sick. And the first thing they tell Jesus is, she's sick. And what does he do? He grasps her by the hand. He does that for us too. He grasps us by the hand. Remember when Peter was walking on the water, when he had his eyes on Jesus and he started to shake in his faith and he started to sink? What did he do? Put his hand, he reached, and the hand of Jesus was there. That's what we have to remember. Our God is a loving God, always present to us. especially during the times of the cross. But he has conquered the cross. And we all have crosses which are part of this life because of original sin. But the cross is also the ladder to heaven. So if we embrace our crosses in faith and trusting in the Lord, there will only be good to come out of that. Good now and good in eternity. And what did Simon Peter's mother-in-law do once she was healed? She served him. She made lasagna. Isn't that great? I'm going to go to that house. Okay. But you see, the message there is, right? Once we're touched by Jesus Christ, we don't stop there. Now the response, service. And we heard that in St. Paul, didn't we? I give my life, everything. I'm not a hireling. I give my life. I live for the gospel. I thrive. My joy comes from preaching the gospel. All of us are called to that, not just priests. And it is a great joy for me to preach the gospel because I get to preach Jesus Christ, right? And he has touched my life, obviously. Thankfully, I'm grateful for that. So we all have to think about, reflect back on your lives. When were you in a deep, dark moment? Is it now? Was it then? We're going to have them. And did he lift us up, take us by the hand, and restore us? Remember, he is the resurrection and the life. But that resurrection doesn't just happen at the end of time when these mortal bodies are dead. That resurrection happens every single time we find ourselves in a dreary, drudgery moment of doubt, depression, despair. He resurrects us from it. He makes all things new again. And what's happening on this altar at every Mass? He is making all things new again. When we come forward and we receive Jesus, who is the resurrection and the life, our very persons are resurrected, made anew, filled with divine life, and then we go out there and we proclaim it with our lives. That's who we are, brothers and sisters. That's why we're called Christians. That's why we're marked at baptism as a child of God. So humility and gratitude are to be our postures as we come forward. When you encounter a Debbie Downer, okay, out there in the world, what do? Extend your hand, lift them up, and be Christ to them.